The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. The New Square firebomber gets a shorter sentence after his victim calls for leniency. Ballin' with the NBA's Jordan Farmar, chatting with filmmakers, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. 7 years in prison is the sentence handed down this week for a Jew-on-Jew arson attack in the ultra-Orthodox community of New Square. Shaul Spitzer is an 18-year-old chassid and had been the personal assistant of the Square Rebbe. He pleaded guilty to firebombing fellow Square chassid Aaron Rottenberg. Rottenberg suffered third-degree burns over more than half of his body in the attack last May. Before the attack, Rottenberg had become a subject of scorn in his Square Hasidic community because he was praying in a minyan apart from that community among the patients of a rehabilitation center where he worked. Rottenberg and others who joined him were subjected to various acts of vandalism before the eventual firebombing. Interestingly, Spitzer had originally been looking at a likely sentencing of 15 years in prison, more than double what he eventually received. The judge in the case said he reduced his plans for a sentence to 7 years after the victim, Rottenberg, asked for leniency for his attacker. Of course, with everyone in the case acknowledging that Rottenberg had been subjected to violent coercion for months prior to the firebombing, it's impossible to know whether Rottenberg might have been coerced to make a statement in favor of his attacker, Spitzer. Meantime, in a civil legal matter, a nurse at a prominent Jewish school can go forward with a lawsuit alleging she was fired for reporting possible abuse of a child. Joyce Vierin was fired from the Ramaz school in 2008 as a result of what she says was her reporting of an injury to a child that the student said was inflicted by his father, to which the father admitted. Vierin says the school told her not to report the incident to the authorities and that after she did, she was fired, with school officials telling her she was, quote, not a team player. Now Vierin's lawsuit can go forward under New York State's Whistleblower statute. A very different kind of speaking out was on display in Israel this week. The Jewish state's internal battles have often included racism against Ethiopian immigrants. For one of the leading rabbis of the West Bank settler community, Rabbi Dov Lior, rhetoric against Ethiopian Jews reached a whole new level this week. He said at a conference, quote, "The entry of immigrants from African states is a sophisticated move to get terrorists into Israel under the guise of family reunification and all sorts of these types of pronouncements." Lior has been facing increased scrutiny in recent months over controversial statements he's made regarding killing Palestinians. But moving on to a community that claims a different sort of Ethiopian roots, and that's right here in the United States. Krish Needon interviews the documentary filmmakers producing a movie about the Ethiopian Hebrew synagogue in Harlem.
The 92nd Street Y hosted a special film screening this week of a long-in-production documentary in progress about the nation's oldest Black Hebrew congregation. The Commandment Keepers, directed by Marlene Glicksman, examines the history of the Ethiopian Hebrew congregation founded in 1919 by Rabbi Wentworth Matthew in Harlem. Glicksman began the filming process in 1993 and was on hand to speak about her work in progress during a post-screening Q&A session where she related her personal reason for pursuing the project.
Long time ago, my best friend when I was growing up was African American, and I never quite understood why I could go into her church without problem and no one said anything and they welcomed me in. But when I went to my synagogue and I looked around, I only saw white faces. And that's a question that stayed with my mind since I was a little girl.
Years later, Glicksman visited the Commandment Keepers synagogue in Harlem and worked with their late Rabbi Willie White to begin filming their long story in 1993.
Been thinking about dramatic terms, just what this community had to go up against to hold on to their faith. I just realized it would make a wonderful documentary, and was very blessed that Rabbi White agreed to go along. It wasn't easy, but we persevered, and this is what we have to show for it, so I'm very grateful.
To see more about the Commandment Keepers, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. While Jews are somewhat rare in Harlem, they're very rare in the world of professional sports. But basketball player Jordan Farmar is working against that stereotype, as Meredith Gansman found out.
A sport that is 121 years old Basketball has always had a rich Jewish history, but today there are only a few Jewish basketball players in the NBA.
3 seconds, bounce, Farmar for the win! Got it! Oh, he buries it!
Two-time NBA champion Jordan Farmar of the New Jersey Nets is among the few and the tall.
I was raised in a Jewish household. We did Shabbat every weekend and went to temple, and I had a bar mitzvah and all kind of stuff. So I was definitely raised in a Jewish household and practiced growing up. I don't practice much anymore, but I'm still very in touch with that side of who I am.
And at 6'2", this point guard is proud to represent the Jewish people in professional basketball.
For my first, I think, 4 years in the NBA, I was the only one. And it's cool, you know, the Jewish people just want someone to grab onto and feel like they have someone they connect to and can tell their kids that it's possible, and whatever you dream of and work really hard for, you can achieve.
Connecting with his Jewish heritage on and off the court, Farmar has worked with the Seeds of Peace Camp, which brings together children from conflict-ridden areas such as the Middle East to work through their differences.
When they're young, they want to play. And once you get them in competitive games and they're trying to win, they forget that the other side is the enemy, or and you see them talking to each other, working together, high-fiving, stuff like that, because they get caught up in the game rather than thinking about the political side of it.
He even traveled to Israel for interfaith basketball camps sponsored by the Perez Peace Center. Farmar has spent a lot of time in Israel. During last summer's NBA lockout, he played for the Maccabi Tel Aviv team.
The Maccabi family is very special. They're one of the biggest clubs in all of Europe, and you know, their following is amazing. They embraced me, they supported me. We had a great time. We were very successful while I was there. Living in Tel Aviv was amazing. You know, I live right on the beach. And it was great. You know, the people were great, the food was great, the weather was great, and they loved their basketball, so it was the best of all worlds.
To see how Jordan Farmar and I take it to the court, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. That's all for this week from all of us here at the Jewish Channel. Be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.